you mentioned Michigan State. I don't think Michigan State necessarily played all that well against Ole Miss. It felt like Ole Miss kind of out Michigan State did Michigan State, if that makes sense. And the Spartans were able to make a little bit of a run late. They got a couple huge rebounds from Jace Richardson, who finished with 20 points and 6 rebounds. I know we got an interview with him that we can hear in a couple of minutes, but what did you make of his performance? What did you make of Tom Izzo's reliance on him? And what did you make of Tom Izzo getting choked up a little bit in the postgame?
I mean, come on. Tom Izzo gets choked up in every postgame this time of year, right? I mean, it's a rite of passage. For every game Tom Izzo wins in the tournament, he starts to tear up a little bit. It's kind of like you at the Final Four, the last game when we finish up, you start to cry. I mean, it is what it is, right? I mean,
every year, man.
I know.
Every year. It's the end of,
I'm waiting
it's the end
for
of an era. Every season is the end of an era, Goodman.
Poor Latulip has no idea what he's got himself into for the hugs and kisses and crying of Rob Doster.
UConn's not going to be there, so I'm sure it's been great.
That's
the
a
last
good point. Years. There may not be as much.
Illinois is not going to be either. But I'm just saying.
Wait a minute. The last 2 years it doesn't matter because wait a minute. By the time that moment happens, Latulip, the entire crew. Trevor Valise and Dagan Hughes are crying tears of joy that they made it through another season. It's like they won the Larry O'Brien trophy when they finished. You know the image of KG saying anything's possible? That's Dagan after the final game of the freaking season. But you know what? I don't blame Tom Izzo one bit for crying because this is such a storybook season. We thought they would be, with the exception of Terrence Oglesby, we thought they'd be 5th or 6th in the Big Ten, maybe win a game or two in the NCAA tournament. They are 40 minutes from the Final Four. And you know what? It's not pretty. And there's a lot of ugly within the game at times, but it's Michigan State basketball. And Ole Miss for the first 20 minutes was not letting them get out in space. I thought the key to the game and the momentum of the game was when Michigan State, when Jace Richardson and Jaden Akins hit 2 threes to close the first half. It gave Michigan State something to bottle up in that locker room. And Ole Miss's shot selection wasn't great late. Tom Izzo called 2 timeouts in the last 3 minutes. And Jeff, what happened? It was a Holloman to Cooper on a slip and a tough shot, Akins or Richardson there on the runner. One of them on that runner in the lane. Akins. Just like that there was the difference in the game, Jeff.
You're right. At the end of the first half, it was huge. I mean, Jace Richardson was terrific in the first half, keeping him in the game. Cohen Carr hit a big 3, and then Akins hit that 3 late to give him some momentum going into halftime where Tom Izzo must have been ecstatic that they weren't down more. And then, Padula, there was one play, I think Ole Miss was up 8. I think they were up 8 at this point, and Ole Miss comes down the court, and Petula, who had been fantastic all game, he was in foul trouble early, but when he was on the court, he was terrific. He took a 3 early in the shot clock, missed it. Michigan State came down the other way. They hit a shot to cut it to 6. Then it went to 4, and quickly all the momentum that Ole Miss had at that point was gone. It had completely deteriorated. Has had Ole Miss at that point. I will say this, guys. Looking at these 2 teams in person, Michigan State and Auburn, it legitimately looks like a major league team and a AA team. It really does. If Tom Izzo can win this game Sunday and get the Spartans to the Final Four, I'm convinced this might be, and I know saying this sounds ridiculous because he's had so many unbelievable coaching performances in his career, but if he gets this team and beats Auburn to get to the Final Four, it could be his best performance of his career at 70 years old.
I don't think that's crazy.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think that's crazy. You got to think about the era that we're in now. And not only the era that we're in, let's be real, how much shit Tom Izzo has gotten for not loading up in the portal And we know his thoughts on NIL. I know he's embraced it a little bit more, but I think this is why it feels so good for him. And I think it's why he is so emotional about it, because it reinforces probably why he got into the job to begin with, was to have an impact and have guys band together and create cohesion on your team that then leads to on-court success when everybody looks at your team and still to this day is like, well, they don't have a guy when they might have a guy that's a lottery pick, right? It's still all about the team, and those guys buy in. It's incredible watching them live because they really are. I mean, I think their moniker is Spartan Dogs, and like they have Spartan dogs, and it's been amazing to see. And again, like I think it's vindicating might be the word for Izzo, because he's taken a lot of heat. Yeah, I mean, it's just that's my thoughts.
You've been using your word of the day, toilet paper. I see.
Nobody's right.
Yeah, it genuinely could be the best coaching performance because of the era that we're in and because of the way I think people, just kind of ruled Izzo out in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're in an era.
Go ahead, Phantom.
We are in an era where it is very hard to do what he is doing. And that's what has to make it that much sweeter for him to be accomplishing this. Down the stretch tonight, let's face it, Ole Miss, how do they build their roster? Chris did a brilliant job with his team this year. Make no mistake about it. Now he goes into the portal. He goes in the portal. He's the modern day 2025 transfer. And they've got studs. And Sean Padula deserves a hat tip. Hell of a run in the NCAA tournament, young sir. You were fantastic. But when it matters most, Michigan State limits you offensively with a relentless DNA that comes out of them. They willed themselves to stops. The sum is greater than the parts. It is. Because when you put all these pieces together, the depth of this team, they are an exception to Jay Wright's whole thing in 2016 and 18 when he said, look, you need depth in October and November. But at this point, I've got my guys. And by the way, I got a couple of NBA guys, but I got 6 guys, and this is who I'm winning with. They just figure out a way to, all right, we'll plug Frankie Fiddler in for 2 minutes. All right, it'll be Trey Holloman who averages around 10 and 3 or 4. I don't know how he's doing it, but this has been Tom Izzo's miracle in Cana. He's taking water, he's turning it into wine. It's inexplicable, Rob, but this guy has found a way at his age. And Jeff, what'd he tell you? He's not even thinking about how old he is. I think this team has actually made him want to do it more when he was starting to trend the other way, because this group of kids bought in. And you can't tell me that when the camera flashes tonight to Jason Richardson, that connectivity, that dad didn't say to Jace, son, you're going to play for him, and I'm not going to hear a thing from you.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned Jace Richardson. Goodman was able to catch up with Jace after his 20-point performance